Hello and a warm welcome to Federal Special Program Capital Beat. Tension between America and Iran has
आपकी
been
आवाज
high
नहीं आ रही है.
since.
Can't hear you.
I think, sir, you'll have to just reconnect your audio. Just try reconnecting your audio. Try to reconnect your audio. Kallul, am I audible to you? Yeah. Okay. So just
Yes.
reconnect your audio, sir. Yeah. In the meanwhile, I'll just introduce the program for the viewers. Tension
आपकी
between
आवाज नहीं आ रही है.
America
मैं
and
बाकी.
Iran.
Can you hear me?
Sir,
Yes,
I can
I
hear
can hear
you.
you.
I can hear you, sir.
But
I
I
can hear
can
you
hear
very
you
clearly.
also. I can't hear Neeluji.
Oh, but Kallul, am I audible to you?
Yes, you are. I'm audible. You are audible.
Okay,
Yes.
so yeah, yeah. So, Ambassador, can you just reconnect? Ambassador, just try to reconnect.
Reconnect.
Yeah, reconnect your audio. Reconnect your audio. Ambassador, can you reconnect your audio? One second, let me call him.
I think you will.
Okay, just message him. Yeah. All right. Okay. So we'll try and introduce the topic for our viewers. We are already live. That tension between America and Iran has been high since a violent crackdown by the authorities on protests that began over Iran's ailing economy on December 28th. Now, Trump has drawn two red lines for the Islamic Republic. First, the killing of peaceful protesters, and second, Tehran conducting mass executions in the wake of the demonstrations. Now, in an interview to a TV channel, Trump has now threatened Iran, saying that if Iran tried to kill him, United States would wipe them off the face of this earth. This is the statement which Donald Trump made. Now, Iran on Tuesday had warned Donald Trump not to take any action against the country's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, days after US President called for an end to Khamenei's nearly 40-year reign. In fact, the spokesperson of the Iran armed forces has said, and I'm going to quote, that Trump knows that if any hand of aggression is extended towards our leader, we not only cut that hand, but also we all set fire to their world. Now, these are the kind of extreme statements coming from both sides, whether it is America or Iran. So the big question is, can Trump unleash a war on Iran amidst the changing global dynamics? Joining me this evening is Kallol Bhattacharjee, who is the senior assistant editor, foreign affairs of the Hindu. Thank you so much, Kallol, for joining. And I'm also hoping to be joined by
Thank you.
Ambassador Anil Trigunayat. He was already there, but he's trying to reconnect. So we'll ensure that he also joins us on the program. Kallol, to begin with you, these are dangerous times, when the global dynamic seems to be changing altogether. Now, what does this Trump's new threat mean to Iran, that he will wipe them off the face of the earth? What does it really mean? How serious is that threat?
Well, I think Trump, for a very long time, has been dealing with something that is internal first, because Trump came up with the idea that he is going to deal with the American bureaucracy first. And there is one space where Trump can actually work with the US bureaucracy, and that is the area of West Asia, where Trump can actually work, rather, Trump's agenda on the West Asian region coincides or rather cohabits the space that also is favored by the American bureaucracy. So the American national security establishment favors Israel. It opposes the Iran's Islamic Revolution government. And Trump, for a very long time, have been trying to find a common ground between him and the American establishment. And Iran is one area where Trump can find a common ground. So the message is actually not towards Iran, but towards his domestic and bureaucratic opponents, who always viewed Trump with suspicion that Trump will do something unpredictable, Trump is out of control, etc. So it is one area where he wants to find more and more of his domestic critiques to come to his support. You know, critics like Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, they always oppose Trump. But then on issues like, say, toppling the government of Iran, I think even Hillary Clinton would agree with Trump. So it is more towards dealing with his domestic political challenges that Trump is upping the ante when it comes to the situation in Iran. I mean, if really one has to look at human rights violation, then we have very serious human rights violations happening in Sudan. We have very serious violation of human rights happening in Congo. In Latin America, of course, we saw there were instances in Venezuela. They have acted on the president of Venezuela. But then there are equally serious situation existing even in Libya. Next door to India, in Afghanistan, they have a situation where women are being deprived of education. But then why is the Iranian situation so compelling for the Trump administration? Is because it also resonates so much with his domestic critiques that Trump feels more comfortable talking about Iran. Because first of all, it enthuses Israel, it revitalizes Israel, and all the pro-Israel elements in the US establishment who are at certain points, they have been critical of Trump. So I think Trump's message to begin with is towards his domestic opponents that let's do something together. I mean, also his international opponents. If you look at that text message from Emmanuel Macron that he has shared,
Yeah,
Macron is saying that, look, I can't work with you on Denmark and Greenland, but when it comes
yeah,
to Iran, we can work together. So that's a common
yeah.
area. So I think Trump is trying to reach out to these various segments of critiques who are suspicious of Trump's activities, and they are coming to a consensus on a particular plot, and that is the Iranian plot. So to me, it appears like more of a messaging to his critiques that let's find a major project where we can work together, though we disagree with each other on many other areas.
Okay, so you're saying that there is a larger message there. Ambassador Anil Trugunayat is also with us. Thank you so much, sir, for joining. And so this Trump threatening Iran that, if you try to kill me, I'm going to wipe out the face of this country. Now, how serious is this threat which is given by Trump and coming as it does amidst this changing global order? All the global leaders are there in Davos today, and this kind of a threat just one day before, what does it mean? And what is he trying to actually emphasize when he's threatening Iran and also the threat coming from the other side?
Well, I think that President Trump is getting what he is paying in the same kind of a coin. I mean, the both of them are, doing the same things exactly, threatening each other, and they both suffer, including Israel, from this MAD syndrome. They mutually assured destruction syndrome. And President Trump thought that by simply threatening one way or the other, things will settle down, as he hopes that he did in Venezuela. But it is not exactly. Iran is a very different country. It has been suffering the onslaught of the West since 1979. And despite these sanctions, despite all the things, they have continued. And now, of course, there is a deep economic crisis. There is a huge domestic problem and the issue. But this is like dictating to a country how to handle your law and order situation. I mean, if there is somebody is protesting or vandalizing or burning some places, you just tell them that no, you can't. Otherwise, I'll come and get you. I'm, locked and loaded. I mean, those are the kind of things. Today, we are not living in a world where there is any order or any kind of regard to international law. So, therefore, everybody is trying to do whatever it is, whether it is superpower or middle power. We have seen what happened in Gaza or what is happening elsewhere. Regime change agenda, as Carol was mentioning, is a common denominator among all US presidents. It is not only one, but more than 70 regime changes have taken place with the US assistance. So even here, it is very much an agenda, but here they know that there is nothing. I mean, this time there was a tremendous opposition to what he wanted to carry out by force. That is
Right.
from Russia, from China, from the Middle Eastern countries. Can you imagine all the Gulf countries refuse to allow the airspace, those who are hosting the bases? And Qatar even asked them to leave if they want to. And the
Yeah.
statement coming from there that you are doing us no favor, we can get by ourselves. So
Yeah.
there is generally a feeling that we should have a regional security architecture. But as we know, the Jewish lobby in the US is very, very strong. President Trump and every other president has only followed a policy of securing Israel in the region. So therefore, Iran is remains the last bastion or an enemy to bring into line. Basically, that's what they're trying to do. First,
No, but
they get.
Ambassador, if I may ask you, of course, these are threats, but can really Trump unleash a war on Iran? Like what he has done on Venezuela, he's captured the president. Can he do the same in Iran? That is the biggest fear.
You see, if he does not understand Iran, he will do it. He what he did last time. There was no damage whatsoever, and they had to allow a face saving to the Iranians to hit their own base, the biggest base in all of that. So what I'm trying to say is that if he wants to create a war in the region completely, like everybody, I mean, once it is there free for all, Iranians, while going down, will take everybody down under. So what will happen is that they will start shooting around at the bases in the US, in the Gulf, and all of those are also United States friends. So it's not that they have seen what happened during the 12 days war last time in June. Despite the early losses, Iran continued to fight for 12 days and they had to seek an accommodation eventually. So it was not a one-way war, whereas both the powers were there. So it's not that they can just, and today I think the Iranians are better prepared. The problem in Iran is not from outside so much today, from the US threat of attacking. The problem is within. How are they going to resolve the problem of the youth? How they are going to resolve the problem of the economy is what decides the future of the mullahs. So I don't think, to your question, that United States is in a position to effect any change by simply attacking from 40,000 feet.
Right. So you're saying that it's not going to be that easy for Trump to attack Iran. But Kallul, coming to you, how do you think that the people of Iran might resist? They're also watching what's happening in Venezuela, what Donald Trump's intentions are about Greenland. The entire Europe is now almost opposing, and we saw. How the Canadian Prime Minister has given a speech in Davos and how he has protested about whatever Trump's moves are. So, how do you think that the people or the other countries which are in and around Iran, how are they going to position themselves if at all there is a war on Iran, if at all Trump thinks of doing it?
Well, first of all, the Iranian people are quite complicated to begin with. All, of course, they have the ruling establishment, which is focused on their Islamic identity. But to be very honest, there is always a debate about the Islamic identity of Iran, whether everybody should gather around their Islamic identity, and if it is the final identity of Iran. But then there is also a very strong nationalism in Iran, whether we call it Iranian nationalism or Persian nationalism. There is a love for motherland, which is unquestionable. So when it comes to Islam and Islamic identity, there is debate, there is a divide. But when it comes to the respect of the motherland, the respect of one's own country, and that Iran must not be humiliated, even if it has a government with which the people don't necessarily agree. When it comes to nationalism, the same people who criticize the Islamic government would come around and support the government, saying that, look, you guys may not be the best in the world, but you are our people, and we will see to it tomorrow. But for the moment, we will take your sides. So that is what has been happening. That the protesters got divided once the Israelis and the Americans got involved in the game. When Trump and Netanyahu started threatening, there is a very large Jewish population which is in Israel that speaks Farsi, because their ancestors came from Iran in the last 70 years or so. And they believe they have some sort of kind of handle to push Iran. But the moment they get into the act about Iranian government and Iranian government should be toppled and etc., they create a resistance. So this is also a reality that we have to think. Whenever we think of an externally fueled political change inside Iran. Having said that, there is always a danger. The reason that, again, as Ambassador Chigunat pointed out, the regional response, that if something goes wrong in Iran, what will happen? The nightmare scenario is that both the critics as well as the opponents of the Islamic regime are fully armed. There is a lot of arms available in today's Iran. And there would be a civil war kind of a situation in which Iraq would be the immediate next door victim. And if that sort of a spread of fire happens, it will also get to Saudi Arabia. And that is the other fear. And then Bahrain, which is also, part of that Shia influence zone. And then let's not also forget the Syrian battlefield, which is very, very shaky right now. So, and then you must have heard what the Turks and the Saudis have been saying in the last few days, that go slow, be
Yeah.
careful. And as this, if this particular fire catches, then it will not be limited to just Iran. In fact, it could lead to a conflagration of regional dimension. So therefore, I think, first of all, the internal equation of Iran has to be correctly assessed. And I don't think the Western decision makers were taking the complications on the ground into calculation while thinking of bringing a regime change in Iran by
Right.
bombing from the air. Destruction of a nuclear facility or a scientific department or a factory is one thing that can be done by the Americans. But then toppling a government is a very big red line. And it is a red line not just for Iran, it is also a message for other big powers in the world. That look, if Iran, a very powerful country in the region that has survived American pressure for almost 46 years, if Iran could do not withstand American pressure and the military onslaught of the United States and Israel, then that would send a ripple effect to many other countries in the world. That look, something similar can happen to them as well. So I think this particular message will be interpreted differently by other countries in the region as well as beyond. That you can be the most powerful, but then you most powerful in your region. But when it comes
Right.
to the combined might of Israel and the United States, you would not have a chance of survival. So that sort of a message is also
I can't hear
significant
you.
for, I'm not saying just say, for example, if you are even Kazakhstan or say other major powers of particular regions, be it Central Asia, South Asia, the message that such an action, such a military action would send is that now the Americans can actually bring in regime change by just military power. They don't even require, any public protest and etc. on the ground. So even military might is sufficient to topple governments. I think that is a very dangerous message and a dangerous escalation of current state of anarchy in the world that everybody wants to avoid. And I think that is why the region also resisted and pushed back that Mr. Trump, this is not the best thing to do right
Right. But I also want to understand India's positioning. Now, India is closely watching as to what's happening between America and Iran. How do you think India is going to project itself? How is India going to position itself, given the fact they've played a smart game, they've withdrawn from the Chabahar port, and also in the hope that sometimes, later, if years later things get better, there would again be a scope of some kind of a rapprochement. So if a war gets unleashed on Iran, what do you think is India's response going to be, or would be?
now? Well, a war, an all out war with Iran is bad news for not just the region, but people in the backyard or say extended backyard. And obviously, if we look at from Iran's point of view, then India is dependent on the Gulf. But then they are also part of India's, extended neighborhood. And so therefore, the entire neighborhood, the extended neighborhood gets rattled. India, to begin with, has more than a crore Indian workers and nationals living and working in the Gulf states, the Arab Gulf states, the GCC as we know them. Then we have the entire energy supply route that will be disturbed. And I think these are the two major things, these are two major links that India requires to be absolutely uninterrupted for its economy, because supply of energy is number one. But let us also remember that Saudi Arabia and the rest of the Gulf are also important for India's investment. Dubai and Abu Dhabi is hugely significant for drawing
Right.
investments to India today. And then we have to remember that if the energy route is disturbed, even for 7 days, that is, if the Gulf is disturbed for 7 days, then it will have devastating impact for Indian economy. So, having seen all these things in that particular context, India, of course, has been extremely cautious when it comes to Iran. So, India's relation with Iran is also interestingly, maintained in the sense that we have something called the Joint Commission between India and Iran. So all the long-term projects that are problematic, that may get stopped and that may require restarting, these are all kept at the Joint Commission level discussion so that whenever things, sort of brighten up, those difficult projects will again be restarted. So India-Iran relation is very special in the sense that it is one of the oldest strategic partnership that India, as well as India has worked with Islamic Republic. Let's be honest, and then Iran, in return, obviously in some
Right.
sort of gratitude, has always supported India when it comes to Kashmir. I mean, it's a very common complaint that most of the Arab states have not had a great record when it comes to India's stance on Kashmir. They have been lots of dilly-dallying from their point of view. But when it comes to Iran, Iran has actually stood with India when Benazir Bhutto, very famously, she had taken India to the Human Rights Council, and there was this resolution aimed at humiliating India in front of the entire world community. But then the very famous instance of Narasimha Rao sending Deputy Foreign Minister Dinesh Singh to Tehran, and Dinesh Singh was so ailing. So reportedly, the Iranians looked at Dinesh Singh and said, "You are so unwell. Why has India sent you here?" Then Dinesh Singh said that this is the situation that we need your help. So the
Right.
Iranians responded by not just supporting us on the Human Rights Council, but
Right.
also campaigning. And then they got many other Islamic countries to come and support India's position on Kashmir. So Iran has that sort of a special relation with India. And then we work together
Right.
on
But
some Northern
yeah,
allies in
but I want to
Afghanistan.
come. I
Uh,
want to bring in right, Kalul. I want to bring in Ambassador Trigunath here. That it does is India's position really precarious in this war between, or whatever tussle we are seeing between America and Iran. Now, what happens if Trump becomes more aggressive, and if there is a war unleashed? How will India position itself? Or do you think that India's position is fine and they'll be able to balance themselves out?
Well, I think that the Americans at this time are not applying any rationality as far as any relationship is concerned, whether it is India, Europe, or Canada, any country. So, therefore, just putting all your eggs in the American basket will be the biggest folly that we will commit going forward. In the whole region is India's extended neighborhood. The Iranians have been our strategic partners for a very long time. And if the war indeed happens, which everybody has been shuddering about, then in that case it is going to impact on India the most. Let me tell you this. The region will be in flames, but India will be directly being impacted by that. As was mentioned by Kalol, also energy security 60-70%. We don't import any more from Iran. But the rest of the world, Gulf is there. You are now having problem in Venezuela. You don't know when will you get from there. So there are the energy security is very important for us. India's investments are huge in the countries. In the UAE, we have about $80 billion investment. We have 15,000 companies, more than 10 million people present in the region. What do you do about them? How will you evacuate them? Their safety security is the biggest concern for India. So the security and most importantly, the Strait of Hormuz and the Houthis will get activated in the Red Sea. You are dependent for 82% of your trade passing through that region. Now that will all be impacted. And this war for what? I mean, the regime itself is under tremendous stress. If the Americans have never, and I was ambassador in Libya and I have seen it, what they have done in that country, invading Iraq was their biggest folly. I mean, mother of all evils, you can call that. So they have only destroyed wherever they've gone. And this will be the destruction which will be very difficult, whose impact will be very difficult to contain as far as India is concerned. So India is hoping that this will not happen. And I think even for the Americans now, this time they know that most of the countries are opposed to any military intervention in Iran at this time. They will continue to maintain the pressure. They have brought in their naval assets to pressure the Iranians. But once again, we must not forget that Iran is one nation that has never been subjugated and does not want to be subjugated by the American pressure. They will continue to fight, but they continue to door open. They are very smart diplomats in the sense. You remember Aragachi, the foreign minister, spoke to Steve Witkoff and they
Yeah.
wanted to negotiate. So the thing is that today's time, if President Trump can write a letter to Norway that since you did not give me a Nobel Peace Prize, I am abdicating the quest for peace completely. I mean, if that is the situation, he can do anything because America will not be impacted. In the war in Russia Ukraine, he has openly said that America has benefited a great deal, and is rightly so. The military industrial complex is reaping the benefits of that war, continuation of war that helps them, irrespective, whichever way it goes. So they are going nothing. Here they also are wanting, you see, why they want to contain Iran. Essentially to also in the long term contain China. Because China is heavily dependent at the moment, buying maximum of the Iranian oil from here. So they want to come and control that. They want to control the straits and they want to secure Israel, which is the predominant consideration for the Americans. So if
Right.
I think that only country that will not be happy out of this would be Israel. But what one has learned is in recent times, even Israelis have approached Trump and they said that we are not ready for any preemptive strikes. The Russians have gone and spoken to both Iranians and Israelis, seeking assurances that there will be no preemptive strike on each other. So at the moment, it looks as if Iran is ripe for a regime change, but it would be better if it is done from within rather than from outside.
Right. One quick question before I wind up the interview, and the questions to both of you, Ambassador, to you first, and then to Kallol. That it seems that India is not taking any kind of a position when it comes to the relationship with other countries as of now. And people are saying that India has gone quiet. Say, for example, on Venezuela, what happened? We didn't hear much, or rather, we didn't hear anything about how the government would respond. Do you think that India will be able to put out a stern message as to that this should not happen? Do we see a possibility of that, Ambassador?
Well, I can tell, I don't know if it will happen or not. That only the government of India knows better. But we should, like the rest of the world is saying that this should not
Right.
happen, we must also say it. Nobody will
Right.
listen to it. That's a different thing because superpowers don't listen to anyone. But
Absolutely.
at the same time, we must make our position clear. Why? Because we are also the BRICS chair this
Yeah.
year. Iran is a BRICS member. Iran is our strategic partner. Iran is also part of the SCO. It's also a country which is in the global south. So if we want to be the voice of the global south, it is important that we articulate our position. And our position is that this is not an era of war, which Prime Minister has often repeated. And this should be told to Trump as well.
Absolutely, and you're right that we should speak out. Kalol, to you for the concluding comments now that we are seeing the entire European Union, how they are resisting Donald Trump's hegemony. We just see how Canada's Prime Minister has reacted. And do you see India, I mean, do you find India wanting in the responses?
Well, we can't really expect that the European powers would come to the rescue of a country like Iran. If you see their behavior, their primary concern is their interest, and their interest is basically in propitiating American president, who is asking for a chunk of Europe in exchange of peace. So if you see what Emmanuel Macron has offered in his text message that Donald Trump has shared, it's pretty obvious that Macron is saying that, look, we can work in toppling the government of Iran while you can, for the moment, avoid taking away Greenland and embarrass Denmark and basically break the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. So I would say that we can't really expect anything from the West because the West will act in West's interest. What, as Ambassador is pointing out, we should be more vocal in saying what is in our interest. It is in
Yeah,
our interest to ensure that
that's right.
any violent toppling of government doesn't happen in our extended neighborhood, especially in an area where our vital economic interests are very intricately linked We recently welcomed the UAE royal family in India. And if you saw the group photograph of the royal family members with Prime Minister Modi, the royal family members were quite, it was quite what it was. There's an expression of worry and concern on the faces of the royal family members, because in case of a regional conflagration breaking out in the Gulf, it is
Yeah,
the
that's
people
right.
in ruling classes in Dubai and in Abu Dhabi and Saudi Arabia and in Bahrain who are going to be affected first, and they will get that blowback from that conflict. So I think we have to say things clearly and come out in support of peace more in an audible manner, because I think we have not sent out that message so far that these are countries who are extremely vital for us, and we have to be more vocal about their interest also.
Absolutely. So it's a dynamic situation over there. We'll have to keep a close watch as to what's going to happen in the coming days. Thank you so much, Ambassador Trigunath and
Thank
Kallol.
you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.